Every Disney Star Wars show is set on some kind of sand planet. Gone are the beautiful swamps, the sprawling megacities, the city in the clouds. Now, all we're left with is mundane sand worlds and other uninteresting environments. So, yeah, nowadays, every time you watch a Star Wars show, there's this weird disconnect between the actors and the background. This sort of weird, shallow, depth of fieldy thing they have going on. And it pulls you straight out of it once you start to notice it. But yeah, to essentially understand what's gone on, we have to go all the way back to the green screen. I'm sure you know what a green screen is. The green background that goes behind an actor, and then you can put any background you want there. And that was one of the biggest complaints about the prequels, was the overuse of green screens, because we lost the beautiful hand-painted environments or realistic backgrounds or handcrafted environments of the original trilogy. But it's thanks to green screens that we got the epic environments that we had in the prequels. Planets like Coruscant are just impossible without green screen technology. And yeah, for the first few years of their use, they did look terrible. Like, there's countless terrible examples, and they even look terrible today. But over time, they've got more and more invisible, and audience members have become completely unaware of their use. In so many movies and TV shows, green screens are used now, and they just go straight past our heads. Like, it's very impressive, and it's because the VFX artists behind them have become so good at doing them. But I'm not here to complain about green screens. Although green screens have their problems, they have one advantage over the new way of doing things that not many people have seemed to talk about. And that is that because they are created after the film is made, they can be tailor-made for each shot. For example, just take any shot from episode 3 of Star Wars and look at the complicated detail, the insane amounts of detail that goes into the background. You've got spaceships and soldiers and explosions and all sorts of mental stuff going on in the background of the Star Wars prequels. And because they're designed with an artistic vision in mind, you get artistic layouts, you get artistic background, you get 3 layers to the image: a foreground, a midground, a background, and they match, and they can assist in telling the story, and you have all this storytelling control. But now we just get empty nothingness. Like, what happened here? Okay, well, basically, one of the biggest developments in the VFX industry has been the volume. It's that sort of big surround stage thing where there's a computer generated background that's filmed and projected live on little LED screens behind the actors. And basically, when the camera moves, the background moves with it to match the movement of the camera and the actor. Everything moves together. It's kind of like a video game, except the video game character, in our case, is the Mandalorian. And when Mando walks along and the camera pans with him, the video game realistic CGI background moves along with him, and sort of everything lines up and looks quite realistic. And the advantages are you can save so much time. It's probably one of the biggest reasons we actually have Star Wars TV shows. Without this technology, it's just not possible. But, however, if you dig a little deeper, the cracks do start to show. For example, the characters can never go close to the edges of the dome, because then the illusion starts to shatter. It becomes obvious that they're filmed against a TV screen. So the actors always exist in the center of the environment. I don't know if you've noticed this, but like, there's always this massive sweeping environment behind the actors. Like, they always exist solely in the center of the scene. And in addition to this, there's always a massive sweeping high skyline, you know, whether outside or indoors. The roof, or whatever the top of the sky is called, is always really high up because the dome itself is tall. It's a tall dome, and the sky has to curve upwards into the dome. It's far away from the actor because, like I say, he's in the middle of the scene. So the actor is far away from the background. It's a tall set, so they always have these big open landscapes with tall skies, and yeah, it's epic at times, but not for every single shot. That's just ridiculous. And then, following on from this, another issue is that in shots, there is always a long overcast sky, because obviously the dome is this curved dome, and there needs to be a sky that matches that. You can't have a low ceiling inside this volume. So you have these big wide open landscapes, this big wide open skies, and yeah, it's always overcast, midday, boring lighting because of the LED setup inside of the volume. You can't have strong lighting because everywhere is lit by LEDs, and LED has to be on, right? You can't have it off or it's obvious. So you can never get strong, interesting, like, cinematic lighting. You always have bland, overcast, boring lighting that helps feed into the bland environment. Like, if the environment slowly get their interest and artistic strength pulled away from it, chipped away. So yeah, you might be thinking, okay, all of that sounds rubbish, but why does this lead to us having a mundane sand environment? You know, we could do all of that in the woods or something. Well, the problem is that the floor itself isn't actually CGI. So the background is CGI projected on LED lights, but the floor itself is completely practical. And what this leads to is a disconnect between the two, because while the CGI background can move in sync with the camera, the floor cannot. So how would you have those two match? And the answer is you make both the background and the floor more vague. And by more vague, I mean turn them into sand, because it's so easy to match sand in post-production. You know, if you've ever done any Photoshop, you just use that little blur tool or whatever, you just slowly blend them together very gently. But if you have a complicated background like a city or a street or even a forest floor is so complicated when you look at it. So you can't match the floor of a forest to a LED background wall with ease at all. So you sort of end up with this bland, vague, detailless environment. You begin to lose the beautiful creativity and art direction you had in the prequels and the originals. It just has to be chipped away and it's gone. It's replaced by speed and efficiency, and essentially everything's becoming less handmade than it used to be. At least the prequels, artists had to work for hours to create those backgrounds, and the sad part is it sometimes does actually look really good. In a few episodes of The Mandalorian Season 1, they use the volume in a hangar, and it does actually look incredible. You have these ships and containers and stuff blocking the background, which creates a fantastic stage for Mando and the characters to be set in, because it helps dissolve the disconnect between the volume background and the characters, because there is stuff to ground them in the scene. There are tangible objects, there's, like I say, boxes and ships and more people in the background and things going on, interesting lighting to help disguise the fact that they're in the volume. But doing the practical effects, going the extra mile, costs time and money. And that kind of brings us to the point of all of this: time and money. With Disney and other studios trying to make as many TV shows, as many films as possible, as cheaply as possible, they've resorted to losing their artistic edge and their craft and going for the cheapest, easiest, most efficient, most soulless possible route, because they've proved that the volume can look great with practical props, so they just don't do it. One of the biggest draws of Star Wars is its beautiful world and its artistic vision and the uniqueness of everything, and all that's just being slowly eroded, slowly chipped away with each new project. And it's just a letdown. You know, it's just, and I don't think Disney cares. Clearly in the new Thor movie, if you watch it, it's full of the volume again. Thor's always in the middle of the shot. There's always a long distance behind him. The sky is always really high up. You know, there's this tall sky. Boring, overcast lighting. Like, it's all there. All the same symptoms are there. So they don't care about losing the creative vision. They don't care about losing creativity. They care about money. And it's just a shame, really, when all these beautiful, beautiful projects, you know, where we all fell in love with these projects because of their beautiful world, because of their creativity, because of the artistic values. And I guess I want to say a few things in defense of the volume, which is, it is nice to see Star Wars push some innovation, with the original trilogy being so innovative and the prequels being so innovative. I'm happy to see Star Wars pushing something, and that is nice and that is cool, but it's the over-dependence on it. It's the fact that when they can, they will use the volume. It's a crutch. It's not being used for artistic purposes. It's being used to save money, to do things quickly, and who cares what effect that has on the product. And maybe that's even a reason why narratives are being built around the Sand Planet in the first place. We're getting all these stories based on sand planets that are uninteresting. And maybe if they weren't so dependent on the whole volume and boring sand worlds and mundane environments, then we could get more interesting stories, more interesting planets, more interesting locations. But we're stuck just in the same mundane worlds. So yeah, long story short, bring back the green screen. I never thought I'd put up a video on YouTube defending green screens, but I'm just a bit let down overall. And I guess my biggest hope is that this volume technology will go the same way as the green screen, where it starts off, it looks mediocre, and people sort of get a bit sick of it, and then over time, VFX artists learn to work with it and grow it and develop it, and after sort of a few years of its use, we start to get genuinely interesting art with it. We start to get unique things. They start pushing the limits very far. They start putting more money into it, rather than using it as a crutch. So yeah, there's my thoughts overall on the volume, and I have hope for the future that the volume will get better, but Kenobi was a worrying step in the wrong direction. But yeah, thank you for watching. If you have any thoughts, if you disagree with me, if you agree with me, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this, please feel free to subscribe. I've got a few more rants about VFX and movies, all coming at it from the visual effects perspective. So yeah, if you're interested in that, please stay tuned, and yeah, have a great day.